Hello, and welcome back to the studio. I'm Dr. Wigo, and today I've got 10 reasons why you might want to switch from Windows to Mac, including some of the reasons I switched from Windows to Mac. To save you some time, if you're a PC gamer, you can just stop watching. Or you're going to need a Mac and a PC, because the Macs are getting there on gaming, but they're a long way away. I mean, they've got some AAA games, but if you're a gamer, Mac's probably not the one for you. Also, if you have any specific software, there's some statistical packages, for example, that there are only Windows versions of and there aren't Mac versions. So if you have to use that kind of software, well, you're kind of stuck with the PC, except there are ways to run Windows on a Mac, like in a virtual machine. So if you just need like one piece of software, you can still do it. It'll be a pain in the ass, but you can do it. Well, let's start talking about this. As always, I'm going to start with a story, and this story is going to be about how I started with the Mac and then went to the PC and then went back to the Mac recently. You may have heard it before. I've told this story in other videos, so if you're not interested in my story, just skip on to the next chapter where I'll start with reason number 1 why I think you might want to switch from Windows to Mac. So how did I get here? I was working for IBM when the IBM PC came out, and they had an employee purchase program where you could buy one through payroll deduction over time, 0% interest, and I ordered one, and it arrived the day I quit. So obviously they didn't give it to me. So I dodged a bullet there. So my first personal computer that I ever owned was the original Macintosh, which I bought in 1984 when it was brand new. And I loved it. It was amazing. I was working with mainframes at IBM, and this little tiny box was running rings around the mainframes, especially in the graphics area, and icons and the interface. Oh, it was amazing. I loved it. I loved it so much that I went on to be the contributing business editor of Mac User Magazine, and I wrote reviews, and I wrote columns, and I wrote about the Macintosh for 10 years, and just adored it. There's always a rub. And the rub for this was I went back and started my doctoral program. I really am Dr. Wigo. When I started working in my doctoral program, I had to do a lot of collaboration and write papers with other people. And so you had to trade documents back and forth. And back in those days, in the early 90s, Microsoft Word on Mac and Microsoft Word on Windows just really didn't. They not only didn't play well with others, they didn't play well with themselves. So you'd move a document over and you'd have little squares in it, missing characters, all sorts of stuff. So I had to get a PC in order to do my work for my doctoral degree. And there were also some statistical packages which only ran on the PC. So I kind of got stuck. And then over time, I just relied on that more and more. So I went from a original 128K Mac in 1984, and by the time I got out of the Mac universe in the 90s, I had a Macintosh 2FX, which was the open Mac and really fast. My phone is faster today. So then for the next 30 years, I was really a diehard Windows user, not by choice, but because I had to. Back in those days, switching from Mac to Windows was not a big deal because Microsoft had basically bailed Apple out of trouble, gave them like $500 million, and basically got the rights to all their patents so that when the next version of Windows came out in the 90s, it was basically the Macintosh operating system. They had just wholesale copied it. So switching from Mac to Windows was nothing. Of course, Mac moved on. So when OS X came out, Mac OS X, they had changed the interface and they no longer looked so much alike. And the Mac was, well, better. But I was long gone at that point. So how did I end up back with a Macintosh? Well, it was the damn iPhone. When the iPhone came out in 2007, I stood in line to get one because I'd been using the old PDAs with the little clicky keys, and they were just horrible. And then came the iPhone, and it was amazing. So I got an iPhone, and that got their little hooks in me. And then later I got an iPad. And then I bought an iMac, which basically ran my house. I had home automation stuff and other stuff. I still used Windows for school and for work and all that stuff. But I had a Mac that I kind of fooled around with. It died years ago. But more recently, if you've been watching the channel, you know that my PC just started going crazy. The Windows was just blowing up. I was getting blue screens of death constantly. It would just freeze and hang. It was driving me nuts. But more recently, I got a MacBook Air. which that video's on the channel. And I started kind of falling in love with the Mac OS again. It was cool. And not only that, my MacBook Air never froze, never blew up, never did anything bad. It was a very well-behaved computer. And then I got a MacBook Pro, and then I really went nuts because it could handle DaVinci Resolve and this kind of stuff I was doing on the PC almost as fast, in some cases even a little faster. And then I got a Mac Mini to replace my desktop PC, and I love that so much, I got a Mac Studio M3 Ultra, and all those videos will be linked below of all the things I've acquired over the years. But I'm all in with Mac now. I've gotten rid of my PC. I'm finally happy. That's how I got here. So now let's talk about the reasons why you might want to do the same conversion and come over from Windows to the Mac. And the number one reason is ecosystem. Like me, I had the iPhone, I got the iPad, then I got the watch. And once you're in the ecosystem, your life is just so much better if you go all in because of things like handoff, where you can just be editing a document on your phone and then move it to the iPad without even doing anything. It's just there seamlessly. AirDrop. When you want to share files with people, AirDrop is so convenient. Now, you don't need it for yourself because if you have iCloud, you can just put your stuff in the iCloud and then all your devices will be able to access it. And continuity. You can copy something on your phone and paste it on your Mac, or copy something on your Mac and paste it on your iPad. It's just phenomenal. Once you're in the system, everything just works seamlessly. The ecosystem is amazing. So if you're not in the ecosystem, maybe this isn't a good reason. I figure if you're watching this video, you probably already maybe have an iPhone or the watch, and this is just it. They'll get you. Now, the number two reason on my list is going to be a little surprising to everyone. Value. What? Apple tax. They overpriced. They're ridiculous. That's all true. But the MacBook Air M4 for $999 in the CNET roundup of the best laptops of 2025, they had to have a category for best Windows laptop so a Windows laptop could win a category. MacBooks were wiping the floor with everybody. Battery life, power consumption, just on and on. It's just, they're so much better. They're so much better made. The build quality, we'll talk more about that, I think, in a minute. And you say, well, what about desktops? Well, Apple came through there too with the Mac Mini for $599, a $600 desktop that's this big and can do almost anything a Windows desktop can do. And again, $600. So we have a $1,000 great laptop and a $600 great desktop. The Mac Studio, if you want a high-end PC for video editing and music and all the kind of stuff that creative people do that require a lot of memory, AI, the base M4 Mac Studio is $2,000. That's an amazing price. And the M3 Ultra version is only $4,000. Yeah, well, you might have to do a little upgrading. By the way, don't upgrade to the better processor for $1,500 because it turns out it's not that much faster. For like video rendering and the stuff I do, I could have gotten by with a $4,000 computer instead of the $5,400 computer I ended up buying. But a 5090 today costs about $4,000. So for the same $4,000, you get the whole computer, all the stuff, Thunderbolt 5. It's a great value. Reason 3, stability. Oh my God. Again, that's one of the reasons I switched. My system had become unstable. I reinstalled Windows and there were still problems. The problem is Windows has to support basically 1 million different configurations. Hundreds of processors times hundreds of video cards times, it becomes exponential. There may be 1 billion configurations that Windows has to support. Apple has to support like 5. And most of the processors are the same. Mac is only supporting really a couple of platforms. It's just so much easier. And there's no bloatware. It doesn't come with all these ads. Oh, that's the other thing. Windows was starting to pop up ads all the time, and you couldn't turn them off. And they're trying to sell me stuff from the Microsoft Store. It was just driving me crazy. None of that on Mac. No blue screens of death. In fact, there are a lot of people with Macs who have never had their system crash. They've had applications quit. I remember in the old days it was, Finder has quit unexpectedly. But these days, they're so stable and the kernel is so well protected that it also protects you from viruses, which brings us to reason 4, privacy and security. There's built-in good antivirus called XProtect in every Mac OS machine. So if you're running Mac OS, you're being protected against viruses. And it's a lot easier for Apple to protect you. Windows, there's all sorts of ways that devious programs can slip in and do unsavory things. Apple is constantly watching and especially guarding the kernel, which is where all the really bad things can happen. If you have a Mac or if you ever used a Mac, no app can use the camera or microphone without explicit permission because the default is no. If you run an app that wants to use the camera, it asks you and you can say no. On Windows, every now and then my webcam would come on. I had no idea who was doing it. Apple, that wouldn't happen. If it comes on, you know who's doing it because they send you a little pop-up message that says, hey, so-and-so wants to use the camera. Plus, Apple doesn't collect and sell your data. Microsoft does. So if you're worried about privacy and security and people not knowing things about you, well, Apple will know about you, but they don't sell that to other people. Why would they? That's one of the reasons you pay that Apple tax. That's why their stuff is a little more expensive, because they don't have the ad subsidies that Microsoft has. And backup. Mac OS comes with Time Machine backup built in, easy to set up, easy to use. For Windows, you have to go track down a thing. I think Windows Enterprise has a backup thing as part of Windows, but you're gonna have to buy a third-party app and set it all up. And Time Machine is just, you point it at a drive and say, save stuff there, and it saves versions. So you can go back, I want the one from 3 days ago, and it'll go, here's that file from 3 days ago before you edited it. It's amazing. I love Time Machine. Number 5, features. Windows is built on third-party applications almost exclusively. Apple has built-in stuff. The Office suite, Keynote, Pages, Numbers, built in, free, comes with the OS. It's like having Microsoft Office, not as fancy a version, but perfectly usable, and you can use it out of the box. If you buy a Windows PC, you're gonna have to go subscribe to the Microsoft Office 365 and pay them money and do all that stuff. Oh, and then get the auto update thing. Auto updates in Microsoft Office 365 drives me crazy. I have it turned off on the Mac, and every time you run one of those apps, it says, auto update isn't working. What do I do? What do I do? The preview function in Mac OS, it'll do PDF files and let you annotate them and view them and do all that stuff. For Windows, you have to buy something to do that. Spotlight Search, very powerful, much easier to use than Windows Search. So the features of the Mac OS are just smoother. The animations of the windows opening and closing, all that stuff, it just looks better. It's a better looking operating system. Number 6, power. I mentioned before the 5090, a $4,000 video. I think it's $2,000 list price, but right now they're all going for like $4,000. For half of that price, you can get an M4 Max Mac Studio, which has a really fast CPU, a really good GPU. That's one thing the PC people always say. They say, well, Mac doesn't have graphics cards. It's all integrated graphics, and integrated graphics suck. Integrated graphics suck on Intel and AMD because they don't care. That's not what they do. In fact, they both make standalone video cards. Why would they have good integrated graphics? Whereas Apple doesn't sell video cards. They have it all built into the chip. Amazingly, by the way, the power of the M4 chip is just astonishing. The jumps in power from M1 to M2 to M3 and now to M4, and we have M5 coming soon probably. They just get faster and faster. They use almost no power. A 5090 pulls like 800 watts out of the wall or something. Don't quote me on that. It's a lot. And the Mac pulls almost nothing because the M4 chip, GPU, CPU, everything, very low power draw. Very efficient, which also means, by the way, it doesn't get hot. So my M3 Ultra Max Studio, I've never heard the fans come on. And I've done some stuff that kind of stresses it a little, but it just doesn't get hot because it doesn't use that much power. Which brings us to reason 7, energy efficiency and battery life. If you're on a desktop, it's all about energy efficiency, but if you're on a laptop, it's all about battery life. And the battery life of the MacBook Airs and the MacBook Pros are just astonishing. They're almost all like 18 hours. I don't know if you've had a Windows PC. 4 hours is considered a lot for most of them. And the other thing is, when you unplug a Windows PC from the wall and you're running on battery, it throttles it down so it won't draw as much power and won't get as hot. Macs run at full speed, plugged in or not plugged in. You want to save the planet? Buy a Mac. Apple is committed to green, the environmentalism and all that stuff, and they use very little energy. You probably use more for your refrigerator. Number 8, built to last. Superior components and build quality. One of the reasons they're so expensive is they're built to last forever. I know people that still have like Intel MacBook Pros, and they're still rocking, they still work, they're still in good shape. The lids still flip up and down without any problems. Yeah, try that on a 10-year-old Windows machine. The Macs are so good that the upgrade cycle runs about 5 to 8 years before people get around to replacing their Macs. Normal people, not me. I have friends still rocking M1s, MacBook Pros, and have no reason to upgrade. Yeah, the new ones are faster, but they're this much faster, not this much faster. And Mac OS keeps supporting these things virtually forever. I mean, I think they drop support for some devices after 8 to 10 years. If you've had a computer for 10 years, yeah, you probably need a new one. Other than that, I mean, the OS will keep getting updates, and it's just, I love it. Reason number 9 is if you're a creative. It comes free with GarageBand, and you can get Logic Pro, which is what that guy Jacob Collier uses for his stuff. I will link one of his videos down below. He's amazing. But you can make amazing music on a Mac. And so if you're a creative type, this is the computer for you. Again, GarageBand's free. Comes with the Apple tax, but it's included. And if you're into video editing, iMovie comes free. And Apple also sells Final Cut Pro. And you can get DaVinci Resolve, which again is cross-platform, or Adobe Premiere Pro, which is also cross-platform. So if you're used to using Premiere Pro or DaVinci Resolve on Windows, well, that knowledge transfers straight over to the Mac versions. It's the same software, runs the same way, well, runs a little better. And my last reason number 10, is just Windows. Windows is horrible. And the worst part is, Windows 10 was usable. Windows 11, I don't like the changes they've made, a whole bunch of the ways I use the computer. It's basically learning a new operating system. You can't move the taskbar to the side, which is where I always kept it. All sorts of things like that. Windows 10 reaches end of life October of this year. So if you're running Windows 10, you're out of luck. Well, you say, well, I'll just get Windows 11. I couldn't. I had a $6,000 Origin Systems PC with a 5950X AMD Ryzen processor and a 3090 GPU. Windows said, well, that's not good enough. This computer can't run Windows 11. Really? Really? A 3-year-old $6,000 computer couldn't run Windows 11. Windows 10 losing support in October. I had to switch to Mac. Microsoft made me. So those are my 10 reasons why you might want to switch from Windows to Mac. As I said at the beginning, if you're a PC gamer, you're going to need a PC to do that gaming for a while anyway. Give Apple time to catch up. Or again, specific software, but you can run those virtual machines with Windows on them. It's not that hard. I was able to figure out how to do it, and you all know from watching the channel that I'm an idiot. So I was able to get Windows running on my Mac. So if I can do it, you can probably do it, especially if you get a little help. But again, typically it's for like one software package. You can still keep it. By the way, not for gaming. The Windows emulation, virtual machine thing's not going to be good for gaming. If you're into PC gaming, Mac is probably not for you. Now, give them time. They'll catch up. That's the story of how I went from Mac to Windows and finally back to Mac recently, and my 10 reasons why I think you may want to switch. Now come back next week and I'll talk about all the little peccadillos and things that I had to deal with and how I overcame them. So if you do make the switch, I'll help you with like how to right click and how to do things and like how to get used to your new operating system, because it's different. In many ways better, in a lot of ways different. So if you make the switch, next week's video will be how to make that switch easier and how to adapt and get all into it. So those are my reasons. So that's it for today. Thanks for stopping by. See you next time, where we'll talk about some of my tips and hints and stuff for, if you do switch, how to make some of the transitions a lot easier for you. So bye-bye. I gotta go start working on that video. Thanks for staying to the end. Bye-bye.